We're literally swimming in an ocean of invisible signals every single day. I'm talking about Wi-Fi. So in this explainer, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating pilot study that asked a really simple question. What actually happens to our blood when we're around it? Well, it turns out the answer is something you can actually see.
I mean, it's everywhere, right? It's in our homes, at the coffee shop, definitely at the office. It's this invisible energy that just powers our entire digital lives, keeping us all connected. And let's be honest, we almost never even think about it.
But have you ever stopped to wonder if this constant, invisible energy might be affecting our bodies on a microscopic level? A level we can't just see with our own eyes? Well, one pilot study decided to look into that exact question. And what they found is, well, it's pretty stunning to see.
So, where do you even start? How do you study something you can't see? Well, it all begins with the scientific setup, which brings us to Section 1, an invisible question.
Okay, so the first thing to know is that this isn't just some random theory. We're looking at a specific scientific pilot study. The researchers got together 12 healthy adults from ages 42 to 80, and they used something called dark field microscopy, which lets you look at live blood in real time. And here's the really important part. It was a randomized, single-blinded, sham-controlled trial. That's basically the gold standard in science, to make sure the results are as objective as possible.
All right, so we know who was in the study. Now let's get into how they actually did it. Section 2, looking at live blood.
The experiment was actually super straightforward, broken down into just 3 phases. Step 1, they took a baseline blood sample with no Wi-Fi on at all. Simple enough. Then, for step 2, they turned on a Wi-Fi router about 2 meters away, had the person sit there for 10 minutes, and then took another sample. And for the final phase, step 3, they kept that router on for another 10 minutes, but this time, the subjects were also using a special test device. So you've got a really clear before, during, and, well, an after test.
And here we go. This is that crucial starting point. This is what the healthy, baseline blood looked like before any Wi-Fi was introduced. See how the red blood cells are all kind of separate, just floating around freely? That's the normal, healthy state they were starting with. Just lock that image in your mind.
Okay, so we've seen the before. What do you think happened after just 10 minutes of Wi-Fi exposure? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Section 3, the Wi-Fi effect.
Now, before I show you the after picture, there's a key term we need to know. It's called rouleaux formation. It's a fancy name, but the idea is simple. It's when your red blood cells, which should be floating around separately to deliver oxygen, start stacking up on each other, kind of like a roll of coins. And you can probably guess how that could create little traffic jams inside your bloodstream, right?
Okay, get ready for this. On the left, there's that healthy baseline blood we just saw. And on the right, that is the exact same person's blood just 10 minutes later after being near the Wi-Fi router. The difference is, wow, it's night and day. You can clearly see that stacking coin effect we just talked about. That's rouleau formation, in action. And that incredible picture? It wasn't just a one-off. This chart shows the average change across all 12 people in the study. And you can see, after only 10 minutes of Wi-Fi exposure, there was a huge, statistically significant jump in these negative blood factors, especially that rouleau formation. So this was happening to everyone. So the study clearly showed an effect. The next obvious question is, okay, can anything be done about it? And that's exactly what the final phase of the experiment was all about. Section 4, a quantum block test.
Remember that third phase of the experiment I mentioned? This is it. The researchers brought in a device called a quantum block, which claims to help with these effects. But to do a proper scientific test, they didn't just use that one. They also used a sham device, one that looked exactly the same but didn't do anything. Why? It's to account for the placebo effect, to make sure any change they saw was from the device itself, and not just because the person thought it was working.
All right, so this is it. The big question. Did the device work? This is the moment of truth in the study. Section 5, the study's verdict.
And here are the results. This chart puts the active quantum block head-to-head with the sham device. So the blue bars are the active device, the red ones are the sham. Just look at the results for rouleaux and aggregation. The blue bars are way, way lower. But check this out. What I find really fascinating is the bar on the far right, white blood cell motility. That went up with the active device. And what does that mean? Well, white blood cells are like the security guards for your body. More motility could suggest a more active, ready-to-go immune response. So based on all this data,
The study's authors came to a pretty clear conclusion. They said the quantum block showed a robust protective effect against the negative changes in the blood that they saw from the Wi-Fi exposure.
You know, sometimes seeing it all together tells the best story. So let's follow one person's journey through all 3 stages. Here's step 1, their healthy baseline blood. Nice and separate cells, just like we'd want to see.
And then, step 2, after just 10 minutes near that router, boom, you see that heavy rouleaux formation kick in. It's a really dramatic change in a very short amount of time.
And now for step 3. This is after another 10 minutes of Wi-Fi, but this time while using the active quantum block. Look at that. The blood looks like it's returned to a much healthier state, looking a whole lot more like that original baseline image. It's a pretty compelling visual journey, isn't it?
Okay, so we've seen the images, we've looked at the data, but let's just zoom out for a second. What does this all really mean? Section 6. What does this mean?
The study's author, Dr. Beverly Rubik, summed it up perfectly. She said, the blood changes recorded by microphotography are clear, objective, and visually compelling. And honestly, when you see those before and after pictures for yourself, it's pretty hard to disagree with that.
Now, it's really important to put this all in context to keep a balanced view here. The researchers themselves are very clear about the limitations. First, this was a pilot study, which means it had a small sample size, only 12 people, and they only looked at a very short-term exposure, just 10 minutes. So, as the author herself points out, a lot more research is needed, with more people, over longer periods of time, to really understand what's going on.
So, at the end of the day, what is this? It's a pilot study. It's one microscopic glimpse into a possible interaction between our bodies and our technology. It absolutely does not give us all the answers. But, seeing such a visible change after only 10 minutes, it does raise a pretty big question, doesn't it? In this world we've built, a world that runs on invisible energy, what else might be happening that we just can't see?